You're listening to the So Tell Us podcast.
With David Feinberg and Jared McCallie. How was that, David? Okay. Yeah. David, we're back.
Jared.
We're back.
Good Lord.
We had a special interview this week, didn't we, David?
It sounds like you're trying to pitch it to a group of kids.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're leading up to a divorce,
Well,
like telling a group of kids about a divorce.
We can't say to kids, though, that this interview was so fast-paced, it was like we were interviewing cocaine itself.
Oh, my God. As soon as because I got to this one late a little bit, which I apologize for. That makes two that I've gotten to pretty late.
Yeah.
And I showed up and I was like, wow, it's fucking going off right now. This guy is poised and ready. I feel like there's a starvation amongst comedians for that stage time. And I feel like if you watch all of the other episodes of this podcast, you'll see people getting more and more showmanship, I guess.
I think the first episode, Benny's like, no, you go. And now everyone's
I'm attacking the stage.
Give me my turn. Which is great, though. And I think that made for a really good interview, too, because I feel we played our roles pretty well. And, you asked really, really good questions. And we had good back and forth. So this one was a little faster paced than I think anyone's listened to the other ones would be used to.
Yeah. I would say that for people that are coming into it, I feel like Usama is definitely someone with that in his stage presence. He just lights up the stage. He controls the room, and he just, I don't know. I think he's someone who I think really gets it comedically, and he puts on a goddamn show, as you'll see here in this episode.
Yeah, it's great. We discuss a lot of really cool things. I think we discussed Robin Williams and mine forgetting Robin Williams' name.
Oh my God, yeah. You committed a cardinal sin.
Yeah. But this is a really great interview, and we're excited for everyone to hear it. Hopefully if you're listening, you're going to vote for Usama on AGT. I just figured out you have to download an app to do that, which I feel like is adding more people probably not doing it, which sucks. But if you really like his comedy, please download that app and vote for him. That'd be a really cool thing to do.
Oh my God, yeah.
Hope you enjoy this episode. Usama Siddiquee. It's a real barn burner.
All right.
Gotcha.
Which I'm sure you knew. I'm sure that's just classic.
I was reading. You
know us. We're reading up on Bangladeshi history here on the podcast. That was last week's theme, and next week we're going into nativism and ways of imperial enforcement.
Welcome to All About Nepal with David.
Another classic. Put it in the vault. It's another good one.
Where are you at in New York?
I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Williamsburg right now.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right.
Yeah. So hanging out.
How long have you lived in New York?
Yeah, I lived only 6 years. So I came from New York. I came from Dallas. I was going to do med school in Dallas. The week before I left for med school, I was like, fuck it. And I just came here to do comedy.
Wow. Pretty gnarly.
The whole deal. It's gnarly as it gets for a brown guy. That's the brownest. That's the Brown X Games, is telling your parents you're not going to do after.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
So you were born and raised in Dallas then?
Yeah, bro. No, I wasn't born. I was born in Canada.
Okay.
I lived there 5 years, moved to Jersey, lived there 5 years, moved to Dallas. That's where most of my life happened.
Gotcha.
I think the first place you fingered somebody is where you grew up, I feel like. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah. I think so. I grew up in a movie theater.
I still haven't grown up. Yeah.
David hasn't. Wait, so did you start comedy in Dallas though?
Yeah. So I started 8 years ago in Dallas. Did comedy during college. So I think I finished the MCAT, which is the undergrad exam for any medical student that you want to go into med school. And so I finished that. And the day I finished that, I'm like, what the fuck do I want to do? I did all these things for my parents. The MCAT was like the last thing I had to do for my parents, for them to be like, all right, now you're just coasting until med school, right? So I had like a year to be like, all right, let me just explore some stuff. And then my friend did stand up on the side. And I talk, you know, when you're a kid, there's a insane wall between you and stand up. There's no people that can do this. It's just that they have stand-ups and they do stand-up, and that's what they do. That's awesome. But I can never do that. That's what they do. But then I told this dream to my friend, and he was like, yeah, I do stand-up. And you don't realize when you're a kid how low the barriers to stand-up are. You know what I'm saying? Like, as you do it, you're like, oh, homeless people are doing this, you know? But back in the day, right? Back in the day, you're like, stand-up? What deep Illuminati cult will I be, you know? It's just sign up on a sheet. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
And so I go to Dallas Hyenas Comedy Club in Uptown Dallas, and that's my first set. I do a first set, and I've been doing that ever since, comedy.
Yeah. That is a hilarious thing where it's like, I remember going to an open mic and be like, can I get on the show?
And dude, I used to think, I don't know if y'all thought this, I thought that if you went first at the mic, that means you were the best comic. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, basically, it was like a video game. Like, the earlier you go up, the better you're getting at comedy. And when you get to the top, like the first of the open mic list, like Dan Soder comes out of the curtain and then shakes your hand. Like, hey, come on, we're getting out of here. You're going to the next mic or something. I don't know what was going on in my head.
That's the funniest too, because you can tell how much someone cares about comedy when they're like, this mic should be first come, first serve.
Oh my God.
You're like, yeah, you don't care. You want to get home. Like
Dude, I mean, there's so many comics who are like in New York that were like, if you left New York during the pandemic, don't bother coming back. It's like,
correct.
Do y'all not have moms in different states? Like, is that crazy that I love my mom? If you love your mom, quit comedy, bitch.
You gotta be here, mentally, physically, everything, bro. Don't you dare go second grade on comedy. I'll get your mom. I swear to God, I'll get your mom. Right?
If you do comedy, I'm gonna kill your mom. That's what I'm gonna do. How about that? I bleed this shit.
If you left one of the most affected places by coronavirus, what is your problem, dude?
dude, like when everything's done and the bunkers are eating everybody and everyone's cannibalizing, you know, if you didn't eat your own uncle, then don't even bother doing the bunker circuit, okay? All right?
The cellar got different. The cellar got different when people that weren't cannibalizing their own children. That was when I was like, this scene is too PC. That's my problem. Damn. You got like fucking energy, man. I mean, I was watching your clips, and I feel like that is the thing that people comment on so often is how much energy and how much like. I mean, it feels like you're so in the room when you go up and perform. Has that always been something that you just sort of had with you, or was that something that the excitement sort of grew and things like that?
So a lot of people, I have so much to say about this, Jesus Christ. You asked the question of a lifetime. Energy is such a crazy word, right? People say, oh, great energy, great energy. What do they mean when they say that? They don't just mean, oh, I love how you jumped around. It's not as simple as that. I think when people say good energy, they don't really know what they're saying. What they're saying is presence. You were very present. So that's interesting that you caught that. If you're present, Stephen Wright has great energy. Why? Because he's actually present. You wouldn't see that. He's a very deadpan, low energy guy, but he has a lot of energy. You see what I'm saying? And that, people don't know how to encapsulate that because it's such an amorphous subject. What do you mean energy? It just means that you're in the moment, at that moment, at every moment. How do you get there? That's the journey of 1,000 Chappelles, right? That's really what creates a comic. People, that's what takes 10 years. It's not that comedy is a very freakish thing. There's no way you go up and you just have energy. That's not a thing that could ever. I just made this into a mic. I'm fucking insane. Huh? Hey, man.
This is so bad.
I'm fucking bad. Eat this.
Look, let me tell you guys something.
Hey, guys. using a face mask for that.
Yeah, I really, guys, I need this.
Oh, you have one of those TED Talk mics.
You're imitating a comic that's bombing. Guys, I really need this. Please, like, once. I need the tape, guys, please.
That bring your girlfriend to a mic. That is just
dude. If I bring my girlfriend to a mic, that's my way of saying that we're broken up. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my implicit, tacit, like, hey, we're not together because I can't love you and bring you here at the same time. There's no way.
Oh yeah.
So that's what it is energy is presence, and I think that is never a thing that was ever inside my head before. I mean, I was a very shy kid. So shy kids, no presence at all. Only when I started making people laugh that I tried to pursue that. And comedy is one of those things where it's all mental. So like it's when you do a joke, right? Why does it always seem immediate? It's because the core of it has to be something you care about. If you never cared about the joke, at some point you'd lose the actual energy, the juice, and it would become like a rote written type energy.
Yeah.
But if you always cared about the joke, like if your mom whooped your ass growing up and you have a joke about your mom's whooping your ass, that's a real event that always will have an emotional core. So no matter how many times you do it, you have to tap into that core to make the joke feel present, quote, quote, energy. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing people don't realize is that New York, a lot of cities now, we've kind of lionized this sort of written comedy, which is great. You know, you got your Normans, you got your Lists, you got your Sam Morril's, who are amazing comics. But I think people are taking the wrong idea from what they're doing. They're saying Norman, they're like, oh, it's just about joke writing. It's like, no, but Norman is doing himself. Norman is he is being present in his own truth. If you're doing Norman, all you're coming from is here. You're not doing anything from here. So all it's coming out as is blah, and it comes out as, quote, shit energy. And when you see someone, and those people will always try to hate on a guy who has the presence because that is the true quality that they don't actually have. So it's a very interesting thing when someone says you have great energy, because it's a lot that goes into it. And it's a lot of effort to stay in that space and to make sure you stay in that space.
That's a really good point, because that just brings us to the point where we're at now, where it's like every comedian was like, I don't care about coming back and hearing your Tiger King joke, but that just right there is like, you don't care about Tiger King. You're just
trying. You don't care.
Yeah, you don't care at all.
You don't care.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, David.
I was going to say, just to follow up on that and sort of to get more into the idea of it, is that something that you always felt like you, like were there earlier stages of your comedic like persona? I would say that in all of this, we always talk about, you know, when we're on the stage, we are presenting something. Sure. When you were really much earlier on in your career, do you think that you were presenting something that, did you ever have stages where you didn't feel like that, where you didn't have that?
Dude, I was born Chappelle, dude. You know this, David, all right? I never was bad. I've never bombed. I have 0 bums, okay? Anyway, I'm just kidding. No, of course, dude, fucking of course. You know, Jamie loved the guy to death. He met me when I was already in the scene. I think he met me right after I got the Cellar. Like it was like, so Jamie, who I love with my soul, has never had any other view of me. Talk to some comics from early New York. You know what I'm saying? Like what I used to be, the natural progression was I used to be very loud for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like the hardest thing to find out is what you care about. That's really what's really tough, is to find out what actually puts a fire in your heart and say it with pure, unapologetic energy. Because most of your comedy, when you first start comedy, you have no idea. Then you start getting 1 or 2 jokes like, hey, I look like jokes aren't working. Then you're like, oh, okay. Then you start getting into space where like, let me just not bomb. I have a couple of jokes that work. Let me just do a thing that makes me not bomb. It's survival, right? That will create negative habits like, you know, being too heady or saying things you don't care about, but saying things that the group cares about. You see what I'm saying? Like in the mic mind or whatever. But before, I was just a loud dude without any sort of love for what I'm talking about. So I was, and a loud person who's bad is way worse than a one-liner guy who's bad. Because a loud person, his shit's like bad, and then you're like, this sucks. and hurts. Yeah. So it's like, you know, so my shit was so fucking lame back. I was doing jokes about like, hey, how about they do dance moves about diseases or some shit? Like, what about, you know, you have the Dougie, what about the polio? And then I do like a polio act out. Dude, it was so bad. It was so, it was so bad. I was like, wait a second, that's not. But it was all the loudness and the sort of what people see as like energy without any of the actual energy. You see what I'm saying?
That joke is so good.
Everyone's like, that's a tight ass fucking premise, bro. Go for it.
Yeah, that's it. I've been there. I've 100% been there where you write a joke where it's, dude, I did a joke about my dad being from another country and coming here, so I had immigrant pressure, but only half of it. And I was like, I only had half immigrant pressure, so I'm a paralegal. And one Asian person in the crowd laughed and then came up after me, like, that joke was for me, thank you. And I was like, yeah, yeah.
Because to white people, paralegal is a great job. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean a hat? I wish.
I'm excited. Bill, Eleanor, get in here. That's exciting stuff. Look at this guy. Huh?
I help lawyers.
Paralegal. This guy fills out fucking forms.
Give this guy a big kiss. I'm gonna buy you a drink. You this is my daughter, Eileen.
Hey, fuck my daughter. You gotta fuck my daughter. Paralegal dick? Never seen it in my fucking life.
I'll punch your mom in the face. You better fuck my daughter. Okay? That's what comedy used to be about in this city. Who wants a slice?
Right. You know what? Let me suck your dick. I need your paralegal cum.
What's that fucking prior joke? Or who is it? Somebody has that joke where he's like, she's so beautiful, I'll suck her dad's dick. Or something
that was Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah, that was a biggie.
Jesus Christ.
I'll suck on your daddy's dick. Yeah.
I remember, have you ever had that where you're like listening to a rap record and like something happens and it's so funny that you have to like pause the music for a second and be like, oh, okay. Like, I need to take a break.
You got to hear Biggie's unreleased track, Dude's Coming on Me. You got to hear that one. One of the best. It's a B-side.
Never heard it.
You don't realize.
It's really good. Dude, out with liquid hitting a floor. It's disgusting.
I've never heard a rap lyric explained whiter than when David just said that.
I was really enjoying it. I could pause the music.
Is this hip hop? Is this hip hop? Is this what this is?
The hippity hops. Oh my god!
I had to take the tape out of the machine. I'm trying to think of like, because I think that this is something that we come back to like again and again, and I think that it is interesting that you talk about it. Is like we have being in the room in yourself, but then we have this sort of like thing that every comedian I think comes from, yet is also developing, which is sort of this like we are in ourselves in the room, but then we are also outside of ourselves, looking at the room, trying to observe everything that's going on. That is definitely a skill in like the comedy tool belt, right? I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about it feels like a lot of your things were like getting out of med school, really like these moments are about for you of like breaking your fear in a way.
Sure.
If I go too far, but like,
of course.
When that's that is something Jared and I feel like on this podcast, Jared, we often talk about therapy, people that go into therapy, things like that. But like that is, I think, is something that like getting to the core of yourself. Could you talk a little bit about like when those things have fallen through, like another sheet of ice sort of falls away?
Sure, bro.
The next moment of yourself.
Dude, I think it's echoing right now. Are we good? The sound is okay? All right. Dude, I think any art, if you really look at it, it's all about self-discovery, right? And not just self-discovery, it's also the bravery to be yourself completely, right? That's what Picasso said was it takes a lifetime to learn how to draw like a child, right? And then he raped somebody. But before that, he said something along those lines, right? Here's the thing. That's the most important thing. What he meant is the courage to be completely yourself is not something you have in modern life, especially not in art, because people will always police it, right? This is what's good. Tastemakers, this is what's bad. So really, the breaking the fear is what? The fear of what? It's the fear of being myself unapologetically and truthfully and completely. Mm-hmm. And I think once you get that, everything breaks. Everything just like opens up. Fucking Moses with water, bro. It's just like immediately you're like, oh, it's a positive. Yeah, for you, David.
I got it.
Well, it's you metaphor.
I was waiting for it.
They try to spin the ideas like dreidels, you know? It's like
if you could get one more in, oh my God, we should have a big red bell.
You know, and really the ultimate comedy holiday is Rosh Ha. That's what I say.
All right. Bunch of balloons, small.
I just got a call from the ACLU.
What's
saying great job.
Yeah.
So that's what it is, and I think you break down all the craft and the misdirection and exaggeration, understatement, all that fucking comedy theory bullshit. That's there, but at the core, really at the core, if you were a funny person before this comedy journey, all you have to do, because you already have the inner exaggeration, the inner hyperbole, the inner simile and metaphor. You've been doing that forever if you're funny. All you need to do is find yourself, and you will find the funniest version of yourself. But that is such a fucking Eastern idea. And people will be like, what? That's fucking loser. I'm just going to figure out how to do a twist and learn, and I'll send a packet. And these are like the writing packet comics. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Like they know the jigsaws of it. But they're not themselves. They're scared. They're the ones you see on woke Twitter right now. People eating each other's own heads up, right? One guy goes down. Today I saw something, bros. Some dude called out Megan Amram for one of her tweets, and then one girl got him for his tweet. It's like, what the fuck is this? No one's coming from any sort of self-love. No one's coming from any sort of self-growth. None of that's happening. It's all eating each other's heads because we're terrified. That's the most freaky thing, is that I never did the right journey. Everyone's scared of that. What if my journey was the wrong journey? It's only wrong if you didn't spend it looking at yourself and trying to grow from inside and trying to be okay with yourself.
Yeah.
That's what breaking the fear really is.
That's wonderful.
That the journey thing's really true too, because it's like you've seen so many comics now come from other genres. Like people came from Vine. What's the dude's name? Trevor Wallace, I think.
Trevor Wallace, good dude.
From Vine. Bo Burnham came from YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, for Christ's sakes, it's not comedy, but Tyler, the Creator, came from YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, There's all these things where it's like your journey, and people are like, you know, that's the age-old thing in comedy too, where it's like, you got to be in a club, you got to do this, you got to do it. It's like, no, like, there's so many people out there doing different things, and it's really cool to see. But then at the same time, that's the same beast as you're saying, that's just like taking people out completely. It's just going after people left and right, and it's like, are you really being your true self, or are you just living for the internet right now?
Boom, dude. And also, David mentioned something interesting. It was like, you have to be present, but also aware. That is such an interesting thing, because comedy is one of those things where like artists can just be like, genius, and just come their fucking psyche onto a page, right? We have to actually, we're the least lofty art form, because no one can stroke their chin and try to understand a joke. That means it's a bad joke, right? Yeah. So like musicians and artists, they have the luxury of being up their own ass sometimes. You can do that and be seen as a great artist. Whereas comics, if you're a lofty comic, you're just a fucking shit comic, right? So that's what's interesting about the understanding from other people. It's literally an art for the proletariat people. It's literally an art for people, because it has to, the quality of it hinges very on its core on the response of everybody. But if you only let them dictate it, then you'll be also shitty again. So there's a balance. It's a yin yang. Be myself completely, but also understand that I can use that reaction to get better at being myself as well.
Yeah. I mean, we got to start waiting like 100 years until we start like
yeah, right.
putting people up. Like, just make sure, give it a good 25, 30 years before they're dead, after they're dead, and then we'll be like, hey, hoist this guy up. I did want to ask you something though. I mean, we've kind of talked about the journey, but like, I hate this thing because my dad says it all the time, but like pulling yourself up or whatever whatever
Sure.
narrative you want to follow. But you actually did that. Like, I watched the AGT thing, and number one, you got to meet Terry Crews. That you must have had the biggest boner ever. Just
dude,
Terry Crews.
Dude, that boner I couldn't even stand up, dude. It was weighing me down.
He's like, a man stands up to shake a hand. You're like, I
can't. we had to redo takes. They're like, it's a great take. Can you take your dick out the shot though? Is that possible? Like, Terry, bro. I mean, we all the scene of our childhood is him in White Chicks doing the fucking Vanessa Carlton song with his fucking tits out. You know, that was. I mean, dude, I was so pumped to see him. it was wild, bro. It was a wild
but
thing,
that stage though is like, there is what you've done, which is like what I've seen. There's like, the clubs in New York, Laugh Factory, things on YouTube like that, where to us, that means so much. But like, America's Got Talent is a different beast. Number one, the two hardest things I think would probably be to do stand-up is like, three would probably be like the cellar, the store, stuff like that, your parents, and then Simon. Like, you had to do that, man. That's insane.
That was a great list. That was a great list. Dude, I feel like that was such a random list too. It's like, yes, the store, the factory, a platypus, your parents. It was random. It was really random.
Got me.
The grocery store, DMV. Dude, that was the scariest thing, bro. That was 100%. Yeah, I think I've done stand-up in the scariest. I've done stand-up in a prison before. I've done stand-up in the worst, humanly worst places possible. And I've realized, bro, it's like, dude, if you come in with the love is the only energy that can work in all locations. You know what I'm saying? If you come from the self-realization and the self-love and you give it out, that'll work in a basement. That'll work in Simon Cowell's face. So when I went up, my most freaky moment was like, all right, if I don't get Simon to laugh, I sucked. You already know that. You know, the models are going to be like, oh, you were very good. But if Simon was like, you're trash, you were fucking trash, right? You really bad. You're really bad. So I had one joke in there you might remember where I shit on Simon. I was a quick little Simon shit on line. That was the crux of the whole set. If that line bombed, I would have bombed. If that line killed, I would have killed. So like everything led up to that moment. And when I got him, it was like I nothing else. I'll fucking do stand up for Gerard's parents. I don't give a fuck anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'll do whatever. So it's like, really in that situation, just come with the love, and you'll everything. Cause a lot of comics on that show try to be funny during the interview portion. You know, when they ask you before you do the stand up, they'll try to throw some jokes. They'll try to hate on Sophia. I'm like, yo, fuck that. Good. What they do is they bomb early, and then they fucking have to do work at the beginning of their set to undo their shitty riff that they try to do. So I was like, yo, let me be a good boy. Let me just smile, say thank you. They didn't show this on the actual interview part, but they cut this out. But the comments after my set, Simon was like, I thought you were going to be really bad. I didn't really see a funny energy there. But then you did your stand-up, and I'm like, that's exactly what I needed. You don't need to know I'm funny until I'm fucking trying to be funny.
Yeah. No one's looking forward to the comic smoking a cigarette outside a club doing his jokes, you know?
Right?
Yeah.
Dude, comics who like do a set, kill, and still need to be funny off stage. I'm like, bro, you did it. This is why, like, before stand-up, we were just those weirdos always trying to be funny to everybody, and then we found this thing that let our ego be somewhere. Fucking now you can chill, bro. You have a thing where it makes you be funny.
You're bringing work home with you and shit like that.
Yeah, bro. You're like wiping your work. You're just like throwing shit on people's faces. Like, just chill,
bro. I was wondering, because it is interesting to speak to someone that like has done, you've been in rooms that were like, that are, I guess saying dirty rooms sounds like I would say, but like you've been in rooms where it's like anything like at the
dirty
cellar,
room right behind him.
The dirty room right behind.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like so you've done these like really like dirty rooms. Like technically you could do whatever. Like the limitations are not there, but then you've also done this thing that like people's grandmas watch. Could you talk a little bit about like I guess we'll get into the writing process for you a little bit later, but like
sure.
The way that you're starting to approach that thing of you're like, I have all this material that is dirty, let's start making it clean. How did you do that?
Yeah, bro. And it's still a balance because I'm a cum guy. Cum this, cum, let's go, right? I love cum. But it's like, who does it? Who does it, David? Who does it? Come on. Here's the thing. I never liked the distinction.
Take a break from the joke. David had to he was like, oh, okay.
Okay, I'm going to collect myself and then I'll come back.
I know a cum level when I see one, David. I love it. Do it.
We see each other on the street. We give each other the high sign.
I got a teardrop tattoo that's just cum, actually. It's not even a teardrop. Who did you kill? No, I just love
all
cum.
the sheets I've killed, Crispy crunchy.
All the pussies I've murdered. What the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, God.
It's a family podcast. Dude, here's the thing. I never liked the distinction between dirty and clean. I think, is it a joke that comes from humanity, or is it a joke that is not based in humanity? So there are clean pun jokes that are fucking lame. There are dirty jokes that are fucking stupid. It's all about, are you getting to the human core of existence, right? And that's comedy part of it, sex is part of it. So is kids, whatever it is. Is it telling something about the human nature? So with the TV set, I had a producer on me who was like, all right, we love this joke. And they were good about it. They were like, how can we, because open relationship about fucking a guy named Alejandro and all this is like the normal joke is very dirty. So they actually assigned a whole producer to like clean up the joke. And the main thing for me was, all right, make sure that the joke idea is still there, that the humanity behind the joke, which was me being jealous of her being with someone who I assume was hotter than me because of a name, let that always shine through. So I changed fuck to better lover. I changed like fuck to be with. She's being with him, which is, I would never say that, right? But here's the thing. Open relationship is a very adult idea. It's not a clean concept. But, I got grandmas who hit me up. I got all my Bengali aunties from the community went crazy over it. Oh, I love that joke about the open relay. It's like, that's real. That's like actually dirty shit. But I'm putting the dirty onus on them. You go think of the fucking shit and all the fuck, but I can be your symbol of a clean joke, even though it's a dirty idea. Yeah. So really, I don't subscribe to it. I don't subscribe to the idea of cleaning a joke. I will, but there was this other thing where I made this old lady really enjoy me, which I never really had before. I got DMs from like Indonesia. I got messages from like a Cherokee reservation in Nebraska, like weird fucking shit. Wow. People from all generations, all ages. You're right. This is the first credit that has spanned generations and spanned cultures, laterally, vertically, and I'm like, and they all related to it. I'm like, this is something different than just killing at a club with some New York subway shit. This is something else. And I can't pretend like all my jokes would hit with a Cambodian. So maybe I'm thinking now, like, how do I bring myself to the most people? If I can make someone in a fucking Kuala Lumpur hovel laugh, that's something, I think.
Yeah. That's it. It's also like it comes into a different form of comedy too, where there's like comedians that I see all the time that are like, maybe they don't have the best special admired by comedians, but like there's people like Joe Coy and like where people are like, they're not comedy fans, but they love, like my parents aren't comedy fans, but they love damn, I can't even think of his name. He's dead and he was awesome.
He was dead and awesome.
From Jumanji. What the hell is Robin Williams?
Robin Williams, bro.
My parents like, I never.
My parents, bro. How do you not know? How do you have to?
I forgot his name. No, I forgot his name. I just forgot his name. I knew who he was. I could do all those.
Dude.
My parents watch that all the time. I could do those
Jesus
bits
Christ.
back and forth. But no, honestly though, like, but they weren't like the stand-up fans. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's like a worldly, like, you know what I mean? Like that stand-up is like, how many times did he do stand-up before he did that special that every parent's, you know what I mean? I think it's called Weapons of Mass Destruction. But I'm saying,
Explosion. Yeah.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Great title for that. That special too. Jesus.
Sorry, Jared. Did I cut you off? I did not mean to cut you off.
No, I wanted to shit on not knowing Robin Williams more.
You know what? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I never saw Flubber.
Flubber's the shit.
Dude, you are out of control right now. You're really out of control. I don't know if you're Gen Z or some shit.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm probably the oldest one in here. I'm just talking shit on a dead guy.
He just looks like he looks like a boy. He's wearing a
dude,
right now.
Dude, Gerard looks like every Barstool Sports fan in the world right now. Oh, you look like Mr. Barstool.
I didn't think I was pulling this one out, but we got a Muslim and a Jew here, and I'm the one getting roasted? Come on. Just saying.
Oh, man.
I love it. We're gonna get just that clip and cancel your fucking ass until fucking 2030.
It's over.
Just take a whole fun podcast. Just take that one.
David said it was okay.
I'm here for it. Look,
Hey,
I gotta hit up the Anti-Defamation League, and we'll see what's what.
Oh shit! You know what? I didn't even realize what I was saying there when I said that roasted. I didn't even think put those two together.
There's a whole
comedy.
we're on.
Comedy. No, it's fine. I'll own it. Whatever.
I want you to check your Twitter right now, Gerard. All right, go to your Twitter right now.
All it says,
You're done. You're done.
all it's talked about is Chris D'Elia. That's all.
Dude,
Yeah.
you fucked up so hard. People are okay with him fucking kids now. That's how fucked up you are right now. People are like, yeah, we miss Chris D'Elia.
Oh man.
I was wondering. It's interesting to hear you talk about this thing because it seems like there's an interesting split going on where you're at a level that's, very much, you've passed it to seller, all these things. Do you think that you're finding that there's this crossroads? I mean, it seems like the things that you've really attached yourself to are that you talked about the importance of this universal appeal, how deeply you can feel that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But then there's also, I feel like, the specificity of digging into yourself and finding that truth. Do you think that you have an idea of, I mean, I know that things are fucked up right now comedically, but like in your next step, do you think that you're going to be jumping for how do I make the thing that's still popular to everybody? Or do you think that you're delving further and further into yourself? Or the third thing, let's complicate it further, do the two of them intertwine in some way?
Wow. Okay. David, you asked these very layered questions that I don't think I even answered one of them. Like, I swear I just go off.
You're doing great. I love what you're doing.
Okay. All right. You're right, man. There is that very, very interesting thing that comedy has more than art. Art, again, you can be up your own ass and have your own experience and then be like, oh, but I see it. I sense it. You have to really hit someone's relatability or understanding for them to laugh at a joke. So how do you merge the need to be universal and the need to also be specific to yourself? I think they can be different, but they're not always different. Like someone like Andrew Schultz, I think is a good example of going specific, but in that specificity, he becomes universal. So if you talk about specific, there are things you can go specific about that are not universal. Like say you talk about how much you love Velvet Underground, all right? That is a pretty under the radar thing. Now, that is you. That is fucking you, but that might not hit somebody, let's say in Kuala Lumpur, all right? But if you broaden that joke into saying, I love a certain type of music, or what is that joke actually about? Is it about Velvet Underground? Is it about a band that didn't have success as much as they wanted to? All of a sudden, instead of saying Velvet Underground, now you're in a place that's more human. There have been bands that have tried to do something and done it really well and maybe not had the widespread recognition. So now you're getting more into the human aspect of a very specific thing. Is that making sense? So that's what I think we gotta chase. Not because it's easier to just like do a joke about Velvet Underground, and the people who get it are like, haha, yeah, I get that. That's level one. Using the reference to be funny, even though if you're talking about something real, you're still using a reference to be funny. But if you go to the human element of that joke, that's tougher. It's much tougher to wade that line of going to the humanity of it, which is why I think there's only 10 legendary comics. Why do you think Bill Burr is loved around the world? Because he talks specifically, but he talks about humans. Louis C.K., rest in peace, fucking talks about humans, you know? Patrice always talked about humans. Fucking Eddie Murphy, humans. Chappelle, humans. They're talking about humanity, but very specifically. They're not, and Dave Chappelle, as specific as it comes, right? Very specific ideas, Trayvon Martin or whatever. But he's talking about it in the most universal way. You'll see after they say something, if a comic does something very specific or even a story about their lives, which is kind of the most specific thing you can do is a story about your life, they'll always macro it. They'll always go macro. Like they'll be like, Kevin Hart did this joke about domestic abuse or whatever, about beating women. And he'd be like, yeah, this is my problem. Then he'd be like, you ever notice how? So he talked about a specific thing about his life, and then, well, you ever notice how? That's one of the tools you can use to bring everybody in. Even though you're specific, even though you're very going into your own life, doing the observationals, doing the referentials where you're bringing people in with their experience, that's important as a second step after the specific part that you start with. Is that making sense? Am I talking about that?
Yeah. I bring everybody in, you know, like
okay.
That's
yeah.
It's why, you know, I don't know, whatever, some alt comic doesn't have the biggest, you know what I mean? They're not encompassing everybody. I understand they're doing it for themselves, not encompassing it. But yeah, that's with I think Burr, Chappelle, like all that was the same. Patrice was just like, that dude, like, I don't know. Patrice to me was the epitome of didn't care. Like he was just saying what he felt. Like he really, like, I shouldn't say like didn't care what people think, but he was just himself and was doing it was amazing.
People say he's the best comic of all time. It's because he was the most himself. That's what people are saying. We come back to that idea of being yourself. It's insane.
I listened to a thing. My friend will text me this once in a while, but I don't know even what it was. We're randomly watching those Patrice stuff, and some woman is talking, and he's trying to get her to stop talking, and she won't stop talking, and he's just like, cut her mic off. Like, and I was just like, yeah, like that's him. But I'll cut that part.
I love how Patrice is angry that someone isn't stopping to talk. I mean, it's like, Patrice, you fucking never let anybody talk. All right, I mean, you're dead now. But Jesus Christ, Patrice.
We asked that kind of like, what was your? So I'm gonna guess like Chappelle was a main influence for you.
A little bit. I wasn't a huge Chappelle guy. People love Chappelle. I like the goofier shit with the truth in it. So like silly stuff with the truth coming out. So Burr was one of my favorites. Huge Burr fan. Huge CK, rest in peace again. Sebastian Maniscalco, only the pink sweater special. It's the only one that was good. Aren't You Embarrassed? After that, he got too many Jersey fans, and he became his own minstrel show. But before that, you know, he was amazing. Eddie Murphy, most talented fucking performer of all time, in my opinion. Pryor, Bargatze, but Pete Holmes for a bit. I think before you get laid for the first time, Pete Holmes is like, I get this guy. Then you fuck for the first time, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Right.
So I was a big Pete Holmes guy for a little bit. These are the guys that were goofy as fuck, but always said some shit that was like real. And I always loved like silly first and then points right there afterwards.
Yeah. I was a Pete Holmes fan I like his podcast. I think he's like a good interviewer, you know, like
for sure.
I think he kind of holds that thing where it's like, is the guest more important than the host? You know what I mean? Like he kind of holds that, which is nice though, where it's like actually back and forth kind of interview sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Bargatze's really good. Yeah. That's a really good list. We try to like go over our guest list. We actually didn't ask Chip his list. We should ask him that. We'll put that up. Uh, yeah, people are clamoring for that. What's Chip's List?
I'm in
bring
my
it back
car
on.
swerving in traffic accidentally thinking about Chip's List. Do you think that you could ever, do you know like Desert Island Discs? Like, do you have like albums specifically? Because it seems like you're a guy that knew like you said, Pink Sweater Special is one. Off the top of the head, do you think that you have three, maybe, I mean, you might even have to pick a time period in your life, but
Sure.
where are which albums are the ones that you think that you come back to just hearing them in your head in like a writing coaching sense?
Sure. So we're talking, and again, I know what's going to happen. Someone's going to cut the part where I say my top 5, say how there's no women on there, and then I'm going to fucking be canceled, all right? Listen, Maria Bamford's also good, all right? Fuck, Jesus Christ. And also Jessica Kirsten, I think top 5 alive right now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I love women, all right? Jesus. But I'd say the most seminal, or the most like, what is it? What do you call it? Influential, in my opinion. For me, Louis C.K. Shameless was one. That was one of the first ones. I don't know if it's like I'm a Nazi now because I liked Louis back then. I mean, you have to retroactively also hate everybody. I don't know, whatever. But Louis, back then was number 1. Bill Burr's Let It Go and You People Are All the Same. And then Dave Attell's first album. I can't remember the name of it.
Thanks for the memory.
Bam! Skanks for the
Memories.
Memories. I'm so sad. I feel so bad that I forgot the name of it. But
you're good.
that.
Not gonna listen to this.
Yeah. Can you imagine Dave Attell listening to any podcast?
You might look, if you're listening, Dave, we would love to have you on the podcast, but right now, Usama, you're safe.
Also, Chip, let's get your list going.
Come on, man.
the people want to know. So the reasons are because Louis C.K., because I never laughed harder at a special. There was one, the why joke. Why? That joke made me laugh so hard that I actually thought I was going to die. Not in like some ha-ha way. I thought I was going to die in my room. Yeah. I was getting ready for my soul to leave my body, levels of like, I'm going to die. I've never laughed harder at a joke in my life. It was that, after I survived that, I was like, how do I do this? What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? And then it never left. That seed was after that why joke. Bill Burr, because he's the first guy to make me think in a way that I didn't know that I thought, but then he brought it to the forefront. Like he had some joke about like feminism back when he hated women more. It was like, hey, feminism is so selective. It's like, oh, you pay for the movie, you pay for dinner, but when the ship's falling down, I get to go first, okay? Because I don't want to die, or whatever. That was like, wait a second, the fuck, what? That blew my mind. I was like, oh, yeah, feminism has some points that that aren't all in line. And so he blew my mind there. And then Attell, because I've never heard a higher LPM, a laugh per minute on any album than Skanks for the Memories. I'm like, that is alchemy, what he did. That level, I don't think anyone can reach that. The level of laughs that he got on Skanks for the Memories, I think is pretty much unbeatable. I don't think you can actually get more laugh per minute than what Dave Attell did on that.
There's a joke on that album. It's I credit it as probably my favorite joke of all time, and it's Theater of the Mind, where he just says, he's like, I hate traveling. Maybe that's because my father used to beat me with a globe. And just thinking about someone being beaten with a globe is like such a funny.
Yeah, dude, Dave Attell has so many fucking. He has one line. It's like, so I was eating hummus the other day, or as I like to call it, terrorist peanut butter.
That's awesome. Go ahead, David.
I'm trying to think. You know what's weird? It's weird that you said that we've talked about Velvet Underground, and then we've also talked into this because I don't. Isn't there that quote about the Velvet Underground that like not many people heard them, but everybody that did started the band? Do you think that those are also, because you mentioned that the Louis album is one that like you were like, I gotta at least fucking try this or I'm never gonna feel right ever again. Do you have like one more that you could throw at us that you're like, it just lit the fire under you?
Dude, it's so funny that because like comedy is such a shit industry that the biggest comedy special is the Velvet Underground of specials. You know what I'm saying? Like the biggest special is underground because nobody listens to albums, right? So that is kind of, comedy is the new punk. People kind of realize that. They're like, oh shit, nobody really knows these guys that are fucking amazing. Yeah, David does look like he's Are you grocery shopping in your own house? I swear to God, dude.
Yeah, I've got something about my hands. I don't know what
I love it.
I can't not do this.
You're doing a timid Macarena, you know? It's because
Yeah.
staying
I'm
inside.
Madonna on the Vogue tour, but if she had crippling anxieties, you know?
Love it.
Crippling.
Crippling, dude.
Crippling.
The other one would be Pete Holmes is Impregnated with Wonder.
Mm-hmm.
That was a because that was the one that allowed me to think that you could be happy. You don't have to be a fucking badass and do comedy like that. Because I think growing up, all I saw was these fucking like rock star comics who were just like killing shit and being dudes and that. I was a little bitch. So seeing Pete Holmes be a bitch in a very fun way, I was like, oh, you can be a bitch and be kind of like, it's awesome. You know, you can be sort of like a beta energy. When I was beta back then, I was like, that really ignited me. I was like, we can. There's other types of dudes. It was kind of like the weirdo black kid with a backpack who listened to Kanye's graduation album the first time. He's like, what the fuck? Oh my God, this guy's not hood at all. What? Right. And then a whole new dimension of rap opened up. Like, you don't have to be tough to be a rapper. Same thing with Pete Holmes. That kind of did that to me.
Nice. It's good to have that permission.
I will
Pete Holmes is Kanye West. That's what I'm trying to say. The same level.
There's a good thing to pull from this interview. Anybody who's listening for their blog, Pete Holmes is Kanye West. Truth. Hashtag Pete Holmes truth. Hashtag big media lies.
Hashtag Holmesgate 2020.
Oh man. I was gonna add something to that Pete Holmes thing, but it's stupid. I'm not gonna.
Dude, just fucking add it so we can.
Oh no! I just was gonna say that one time there was a female comic who was talking to me, and they were like, "Who's your favorite comics?" And I named it, and then I was really into Pete Holmes at the time, and I said Pete Holmes, and she said, "I've lost my erection."
Oof.
And I was like, "Wow!" And she's like, "Yeah, okay. Yeah."
Why do we always need erections, man? Maybe it's time, dude. Fucking flaccid is a great place to be too. All right, fucking fuck anybody. For
good Lord, the amount of times that I remember being 13 years old in a synagogue. Not to make this an unrelatable story to everyone, but like finally your boner goes away and you're finally flaccid. You're like, thank you, God, thank you so much for not keeping me hard through this whole service. Anyway, sorry, dude, guys, I blacked out for a second.
David, after that story, I lost my erection. I'll be honest.
My apologies. We are. I mean, we're in the final hour here, and this is a question that I like. I do really like when we ask it. Here's the scenario. We put all the reins in your hand. You have God's power behind you. You can do anything that you want. In the modern comedy scene, what is something that you maneuver in a different way or change?
Explain the question one more time. I'm not clear on this.
You have unlimited capability.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
You can take a power from someone too.
Like divine power is given to you only over the comedic sector.
Jamie said, we should use this as an example because it was really good. Jamie said he would take Mulaney's storytelling, I think was like his. So like, but you can take that, or you can get rid of something in comedy. It's
cool.
Like comedy superpower. You can do whatever.
Craft the world.
Sure. Okay. I would give bad comics the knowledge that they're bad. So many comics don't hug their kids and then do comedy for 20 years. I would give that shit comic the knowledge that he's bad, and then give him also the impetus or the idea to go hug his kid once. So like that's a very sad thing. That's always made me sad is when I see fucking people who aren't getting better. They don't know that they're not good. There's no hope. These guys are 45. There's really nothing going on that can help them in this life. Give them the fucking knowledge that they can do something else. Because comedy is shit. It's a shit gig. It's a shit business. It's bullshit on all angles. You make it, and that's still nothing. You know, it's you have to be getting better. The only thing that makes this worth a damn is the love for the craft, and then the idea that you are gaining skills in this crazy, almost obsolete, way of life. And that is such a powerful thing that actually makes it all worth it, is to get better at this thing and to figure out life through comedy. I think it's one of the most rewarding things in the world. But if you're not good at it, fucking stop. Just get the fuck out. It's such a fucking bullshit way to live life.
It's nice. It's nice to hear you feel that like your ultimate wish is for other people to like have a freedom from something, you know. Legitimately, though, that is like a kind thing to wish upon other people. Like, your mental jail is over. You could be a drummer if you wanted by this point, you know?
It was either that or fuck Chelsea Handler. One of those two. Right? One of those two. All right?
One of the places I first started, the guy used to open every time. He was not that great. Like, no, he's fine, but whatever. Like, but he had so much. No, he had just seen so much shit. And he would open every time this open mic, and he would go, "It's Thursday night. It's nice out. You could start a fucking softball team, and you guys keep coming here." And I was like, this guy's a dick. And then like, I completely get what the fuck. Yeah.
So real. So real.
Now we're coming out of this whole quarantine thing. I do want to start asking our guest, David. This is also maybe David is having a meeting. You're just here. Do you have anything coming up to promote?
America's Got Talent. Fucking vote for me. All right. I know I'm not an 8-year-old autistic singer, but fucking please just vote for me. My story isn't sad, really that sad, but it's, because it's trumped by the fucking, everyone else, but just vote. I should be on the next round if everything goes to plan. I'll get some information this week. And just vote. Watch the show and vote. Keep me in the show.
Awesome. AGT. We're going to watch it. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Dave, you want to take her home?
Sure thing. Usama, thank you so much for being on the So Tell Us podcast. Any final wishes that you'd like to throw into the virtual world?
Y'all are fucking great. Good vibes. Follow me at Usama Stands Up, USAMASTANDSUP. Follow my podcast at Your Mango Bay. It's a wild podcast. One of my best boys. Just talk crazy shit. Wild.
Oh, yeah. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the So Tell Us podcast. We're going to be out, with episodes every goddamn week until one of us dies. And, we'll see you next time. Thanks.